I'm sure I speak for all boxing fans when I say this weekend was absolutely insane. All these fights did not disappoint. We were all gifted with treats starting last Wednesday on Pro Box TV, all the way up to the main event Saturday night, Amazon Prime bloodbath between Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora. And we're going to recap the winners right now. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Hangout Spot where you already know it's Real Talk Sports Talk, live from my man cave. It's your boy Johnny, and let's talk boxing because, man, we got ourselves a treat this past weekend. In fact, it started last Wednesday on Pro Box TV. You had Joseph Adorno and Nicholas Walters at 135 in the main event. 38 years old, Nicholas Walters actually defeats Joseph Adorno, and that got things started. All the way up to Friday night, ESPN Plus, Oscar Valdez, Liam Smith in the main event. That fight was absolute fire. But the women fight before that, the co-main event, the unification fight between Superbad Seniesa Estrada and Yoka Valle for all four minimum weight titles, 105. That fight kind of set off the entire weekend, if you ask me, because the ladies, as always, they don't disappoint. It went the full 10 rounds. It was a close fight. Seniesa Superbad Estrada ends up winning all four titles on the scorecards. And there were a lot of people that were chirping that this fight might have been a draw. Personally, I would have liked to see it a draw because I want to see these two go at it again, man. It was a terrific fight. Two contrasting styles. Seniesa Superbad is more of a boxer puncher. Yoka Valle is more of a puncher, come forward, two-punch combinations, straight down the middle. And for the beginning part of that fight, she was having a hard time because Seniesa Estrada was doing a lot of moving, using both hands, going from orthodox to southpaw. She looked really good. She was coming off a broken hand, but she was shooting that right hand with no issues. I mean, she was looking very, very confident. And that was a good thing to see because she came into this fight with a lot of emotion. I mean, her ex-trainer is now training Valle. So, that you had that whole storyline prior. There was a lot of trash talk. So you just didn't know what Seniesa Estrada was going to show up. But she was composed and she had a good game plan. And she went in there to fight. But she did fade later in that fight. I thought Valle would have had the opportunity to take her out if the round would have been a minute longer. Or if this fight would have went 12 rounds instead of 10. Yoka Valle, she was getting stronger as the fight was going on, landing better shots, cleaner shots. She had Seniesa hurt in the 10th round, but she couldn't finish her, and it went to the scorecards. Personally, like I said, I would have liked to see a draw. I thought it was really, really close. I have no issues with them giving the decision to Estrada because I think that she did more than enough in the early part of that fight. If Valle would have came on a little bit sooner, I think she would have made a better case to either win that fight or get a draw or even, like I said, possibly set her up for a late round stoppage. But they got to do it again, man. I enjoyed that fight. I would love to see them do it again. I don't know if it happens, but, their Valles people are screaming for it. There was a part in the fight, in the early part of the fight, where Seniesa landed a headbutt, where she cut Valle. That obviously affected her a little bit. And they were saying after the fight that they thought it was intentional. I didn't think it was intentional, but again, I don't know. Then you had the main event between Oscar Valdez and Liam Wilson. And that fight, in my opinion, also did not disappoint. I got exactly what I thought I was going to get out of that fight. Two guys that were going to try to slug it out. Oscar Valdez, obviously, this is the latter part of his career. So this was a must-win for him if he intended on continuing to fight big fights, unifying fights at that division. And he actually looked pretty damn good in this fight. Showed a lot of power later in the fight as well, stopping Liam Wilson by TKO in round number 7. But Liam Wilson was game. He was also landing some big shots. And I knew he was going to come to fight, man. He's a tough kid. But Valdez, man, like I said, he pulled this one out. He is now an interim champion at that 130-pound division. And we'll see what the future holds for him, man. I mean, there was just a lot of emotion after the fight during his interview. And, you got the sense that there was just a big relief off his shoulders, because I think that he even doubted himself if he could be able to fight at this level at this point in his career. He is an action fighter, and I do want to see him continuing to fight, for hopefully for multiple titles at 130. And, one hell of a display of sportsmanship after this fight as well, encouraging Liam Wilson to continue to fight. In fact, there was also a clip that was released on social media where they were talking as they were heading back to the locker rooms, and he was inviting Liam Wilson to come to the camp and work out with him and Eddie Reynoso. Not only does he put on a show in the ring, but he's a class act, man. He's good for boxing. He really is. So kudos to Oscar Valdez. On that card, you also had the young sensational Emiliano Vargas, who was the son of legendary fighter Fernando Vargas. I thought he put on a great boxing display. He did go the distance. He was facing a guy who realistically just wanted to survive, but he got some good work in, man. He really looked good in the process, and these are the type of rounds that I believe are going to benefit him, as he continues to progress. And kudos to Fernando Vargas, man, because it seems like all his sons, are legit and they have star potential, So it'd be interesting to see how he brings all three of them along. And then we also had Ray Moratala, who ends up going to decision. He wins by decision. I thought it was going to be an easier night at the office for him, but he was facing a tough guy, an awkward guy. But, again, he's still a young guy, 18th pro fight, who's looking to get better and better. I thought that was some good work for him as well. Then you have Richard Torres, the young heavyweight sensation. He gets a knockout there, no surprise. He's being groomed to be the next best American heavyweight. So we'll see how he continues to go along. But it was a good card overall, a really solid card that was a good lead-in to what we saw Saturday night. And that was the first ever Amazon Prime pay-per-view event with PBC, with the main event being Sebastian Fundora against Tszyu. We'll get into that in a second. But overall, I got to say it was a good first card for Amazon Prime and PBC. It was solid. The card was good. It delivered. There were a lot of people that were questioning whether it should be a pay-per-view event or not. Personally, I thought it should have been a free card, especially since it was the first one on the platform. You didn't know what to expect coming into it either as far as presentation. And if you're a true boxing purist like me, that's very, very important. I thought it'd be kind of cartoonish, because I remember last year watching an Amazon Prime baseball game, and, it just didn't have the same feeling, as a game that you would see on some of the other platforms that obviously have been commentating games for years and years. But overall, I thought it was pretty good. The presentation was good because they had mostly all the people from Showtime on, as commentators and hosts and all that other stuff. Brian Custer was hosting the event. You had Abner Mares, Mauro Ranallo was there. Joe Goosen, was at ringside. Those three were the color commentators. Jordan Plant, she was doing the fight interviews in the ring. So, it got the sense that this was the same thing as a Showtime pay-per-view. I mean, nothing really different. So from a presentation standpoint, it did really well, especially the first time out. Now the fights were all enjoyable in my opinion. Even the prelim undercard was really, really good. Brian Mendoza and Bohachuk, fighting for, a 154-pound interim title. That fight was super entertaining because it was just what you thought you were going to get. Two guys that were going to go in there with great chins, banging it out. And kudos to Bohachuk. He actually wins by unanimous decision. There was a point in that fight that I thought, Brian Mendoza's corner should have considered stopping it. He was taking a lot of headshots, but Brian Mendoza, I mean, kudos to him. My boy, there is no quit in him. He has granite in his chin. He continues to fight regardless of how much punishment he's taken. And if you see after the fight, his face was like this. I mean, it was severely swollen. And, but there was no quit in him. And the crazy part about it is the ninth round, he landed some good uppercuts, and, it looked like he may have something going there, maybe, some late round magic. But, Bohachuk, is another dude that, he has a great chin as well. And it was just back and forth. So a well-deserved victory for Bohachuk there. Brian Mendoza, that's a tough loss for him against a tough fighter. But I know that he's going to come back and rebound, in the future. But it'd be interesting to see what they do next with Bohachuk, because based on his style, come forward, power shots, he may be a guy that is avoided by some of these other fighters. But that was the fight that led into the main card. And the main card started out with Julio Cesar Martinez against Angelito Cordova. That was a good fight. It went the distance. It was a little sloppy and awkward a bit. But Julio Cesar Martinez, who suffered a couple of cuts in the fight, he actually wins by majority decision to keep his WBC junior flyweight title. I think that maybe they should potentially think about doing it again. But it was a good fight, to headline, to start out the main card. And then the second fight, you had Erizandi Lara, the American Dream, 40 years old, going up against a tough opponent in Michael Zafara. And I thought that fight was going to be a lot better than what it was. It actually was a second round knockout by Lara. And this is another fight where he ends it in an early knockout, which is crazy to me. Because not only is he 40 years old, it seems like he's getting stronger and stronger, as he gets older. And, early part of his career, he's known as a mover, a boxer, puncher, mover. I mean, we saw him against Canelo, right? Stick, move. Canelo was just frustrated, had a hard time trying to find Lara the entire night, So he's kind of changed his style since he became older. And maybe it's because he doesn't have the ability to move around the ring like he used to. But, he's sitting down on his punches right now. And he ends it with a beautiful 1-2 combination. The second shot being a left, right on the chin. Puts Zafara down, and you could tell by the look at his face, he wanted no part in trying to get up. So a very impressive performance by Lara. Next, I'd like to see him fight Danny Garcia. I mean, they were saying that that's the fight that should have been made for this card because, rumors were a couple of months ago that this fight was pretty much, a done deal, but it never happened for some reason. I'd like to see that fight happen next. They actually interviewed Danny Garcia during this card. He looks great. He looks happy. He said vocally that he wants that fight, so I'm sure he was there, to try to recruit the future opponent. That would be a very interesting fight to see next at 154. And then we had the co-main event, which I thought would potentially steal the show based on styles. I mean, you had two guys that were punchers. They were just gonna go in the center of the ring and just bang it out, like they were two dudes in the corner of Bushwick. That's what I thought we were going to get. But man, oh man, was I wrong. Because first of all, I should have stuck to my first gut feeling. When this fight was first announced, I said right off the bat, I thought Pitbull was the better fighter. I thought he would mow down Rolly. But then as the fight got closer and I see Rolly's style and I saw some videos of Rolly training and him hitting the mitts pretty hard, I figured, you know what, he's going to probably come in 20 pounds over the weight limit. So he'll definitely be the bigger guy. He can punch. He didn't look that bad against Tank Davis in the early part of that fight. I thought maybe with his power and his ability to maybe, stick that hard jab that he'd be able to slow down Pitbull enough to maybe catch Pitbull in the later rounds. But like I said, I was wrong, and I'll admit it. I admit when I'm wrong. I totally got this one wrong because Pitbull just mowed through Rolly like it was just absolutely easy work. I mean, he demolished Rolly. Rolly didn't have a chance from the beginning. And from the first round, it was funny because I texted out one of my boys and I said, after I saw Pitbull throw those first two overhand rights and lefts that just barely missed Rolly, I was like, this fight is going to end in a knockout because he's going to eventually catch Rolly one of those overhand shots. And he did. He caught him with an overhand left early. And then it was kind of downhill from there. It was like Pitbull just was the stalker, just stalking Rolly. Rolly had no type of footwork or boxing ability to be able to stop whatever Pitbull was doing coming forward. And you got to admire the way Pitbull fights because that is who he is. And he sticks to who he is. There's no jab in his game. He's just going to go in there with his gloves up. He's going to hunt you. And then he's going to look to mow you down. He's going to try to land big shot after big shot. And if you got nothing in return for him to respect you power-wise, you're in for a long night. And he did that against Tank Davis the entire fight. I mean, he never retreated. He came forward the entire fight. And Tank Davis is a puncher. Tank Davis can hit you and can put you out with one shot. But that's just the type of guy Pitbull is. I mean, it's his nickname. I mean, there's no better nickname for a fighter than Pitbull's nickname for himself. I mean, because that's exactly how he fights, like a dog. He came in thick neck. So you got to say, you got the sense right off the bat that realistically maybe anything Rolly throws is going to hurt him, and Rolly did hit him with some good shots, and he walked right through him. So kudos to that. It really wasn't a good fight unless you're a Pitbull fan. Then you got your money's worth. But it was good to see Rolly get humbled. I don't know what's next for this guy. He's not going to be able to beat any of the top guys. So I don't know. Maybe he should consider, if Ryan Garcia loses, maybe they can, muster up a good money fight. I don't know. Stylistically, maybe that would work. But either way, I don't see him beating any of the top guys. He just doesn't have that type of skill level to be able to do that. As far as Pitbull, he now has a portion of the 140-pound title. The fight that I would love to see Pitbull in would be against the IBF champion, Subriel Matias. I think style-wise, that fight would be absolutely insane. Two hunters that are just going to go into the middle of the ring and just try to knock each other's head off. Mexico against Puerto Rico, they got to make that happen. But either way, he called out Haney, Teofimo. He wants all the big names now that he has a title. So congratulations to him. And now to the main event, which absolutely did not disappoint. But there's a lot to go over here. Tszyu ends up losing his title to Sebastian Fundora by decision. And it was a huge and deep gash on the top of the head that changed the entire momentum and trajectory of this fight. The first 2 rounds, Tszyu looked like he was going to mow through Fundora. He won every second of the first 2 rounds easily. And then right before the second round ended, an accidental elbow by Fundora to the top of the head opened up a gash that was just leaking blood the entire night. It looked like a faucet, that he had just opened a faucet on the top of Tszyu's head. There was nothing that any cut man, in my opinion, was going to be able to do to stop that. It was just in a bad spot. It was in the head. Obviously, with the adrenaline and the blood rushing up there are certain veins where if you hit, you're not going to be able to stop the bleeding. And that's exactly what happened, and it became a major factor in the fight. Now, I will give Fundora a lot of credit. I mean, he fought smart. He used his range. He used his jab. Usually he'll go in there and he'll try to bang it out. Mexican style, phone booth style. That got him knocked out last fight against Brian Mendoza. So a lot of people question, including myself, how does a guy that get put to sleep his last fight, get a chance to contend for a title? I did think it would be a fun fight based on styles, and I was right. Like I said, these two guys, they went at it. And I give Tszyu kudos, a lot of kudos, because you can tell for the majority of 10 rounds of that fight, he was having trouble seeing because of the blood going right into his face and his eyes. You could see he was wiping off the blood of his eyes the entire fight. And not 1 ounce of quit in this guy, which is the reason why I think the commission should have just stopped this fight before the 4th round, call it a no contest, let Tszyu get some stitches on his head, and maybe let them come back and do it again in a couple of months. I thought that was insane that they continued to let the fight happen. Now, as a fan of boxing, yeah, I'm happy at the moment because I want to see them fight. And trust me when I tell you, it was a great fight. I tweeted after that fight that these are the type of fights that made me fall in love with boxing, because you had 2 guys, both of them were bleeding, because Fundora's nose was gushing out blood the entire fight as well. This was an absolute bloodbath. If you are the type of fan that likes bloodbath fights, this was it. It doesn't get any bloodier than this. So, the fan in me didn't want this fight to end. I wish it would have went another 5 or 6 rounds. But the realist in me, I mean, there was no way you were going to stop that cut. And what you're doing is you're putting one fighter at a severe disadvantage in a major title fight, and it ended up costing him his belt. Now, to his credit, he didn't make any excuses. And, I give him credit, too, because he took this fight on 12 days' notice. 2 contrastingly different styles. Fundora and Thurman are 2 totally different styles, different sizes, and he did not hesitate once. He took the fight. The show must go on. He is a true old school warrior. That's why I love him. As a fighter, I am a fan of him as a person as well. Wants to come back at it, wants to get a rematch, and I think he should get a rematch. I think he deserves a rematch. All this nonsense that PBC is doing with having Errol Spence at the fight, then him coming in to call out Fundora for a fight, for the next fight, I think that's absolutely insane. I mean, Errol Spence just got massively just beat down by Terrence Crawford. And now all of a sudden in his comeback fight, he's going to fight for a 154-pound title. And he's going to jump the guy that should deservedly get the rematch. There's no way that you can do that to Tszyu. He deserves a rematch. It is very, very clear. If you are a true boxing fan, with the way it was going and the way he was landing those right hands the first 2 rounds, this fight probably would have ended in a stoppage. He probably would have stopped Fundora in the middle to late rounds. I firmly believe that. I stand by that totally. The cut played a huge part in it. Now, at the end of the day, he continued to fight. And you got to give Fundora credit. I'm not crapping on his victory at all. I give him a lot of credit. He fought good. He landed a lot of jabs. Tszyu was eating a lot of leather, but I also think he was eating a lot of leather because he couldn't see a lot of leather that was coming based on the blood. So, poor job, in my opinion, by the commission, by the doctors. How do you look at a cut that deep on the top of the head? I mean, regardless of what they were putting on it, as right before the bell rang, there was blood gushing into his face. Even before, he got into the center of the ring to throw a punch. That was every round, after the second round. How do you let that fight continue is beyond me. But it was a very, very close fight. I thought Fundora won, clear down, but it wasn't a landslide by any means. Tszyu was in the fight till the end. How do you not give him an immediate rematch? So they better do that. Do the right thing. They're talking about Crawford maybe, fighting for the WBO portion of the title. And then you got Crawford and Spence going at it on social media. Hey, I'm first. No, I'm first. I think both of them need to take a back seat and let Tszyu duke it out with Fundora, and maybe one of them get the winner. But, PBC, with the way they operate, man, you get the funny feeling it's going to be Spence, and that is going to be totally, totally unfair. I give kudos to Fundora. Great fight. He's now 154-pound champion. Tszyu, great champion. I think he's going to be back, and he's going to be back even stronger and more exciting fights. So I look forward to that. But like I said, fight fans, we were the true winners this weekend because all these fights on all these different cards did not disappoint. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. What did you think was the most exciting moment of this weekend's fights? And as always, if you're new to watching my videos, you know what to do. Please subscribe. This is how we do it up at the Hangout Spot. Lots of boxing in the next coming weeks, and we'll be all over it. Lots of special guests that I'm also going to have in the next coming weeks. Lots of big surprises. And let's not forget the Jets. They're drafting in less than a month. We'll be all over that as well, so make sure you're along for the ride. But as always, fight fans, I appreciate the love and support. This is your boy Johnny signing out from the Hangout Spot, and I will talk to everybody soon.